Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Walt Disney Q&A. It's been a while, at least for me, not for you guys. It's funny, at the end of October, I sort of recorded a bunch of Q&As, and I had to spread them out over the month, so I haven't made one of these in a couple of weeks, and so I have a bunch of questions here, and we're going to go through things differently. Like, I've been experimenting with the format a little bit. As you can see, we're back here at the parks. We're going to walk around the resorts a bit and the parks a bit. I will probably bring back the face cam aspect. I just wasn't ready for that today, so we're not going to have it today. And we are going to go back to the longer format. Some of you like the shorter, more of you seem to enjoy the longer versions, so we're going to go back to the longer versions. So let's just kick it right off because we do have a lot of questions. So, first question comes from Bowie Badger, who asks, "Hey Rob, have you ever been or want to go to a Disney park overseas? If so, which one? I've been to Euro Disney and I've always wanted to go to Disneyland Tokyo." Yes, I have never been to one overseas. I would love to visit one overseas. I would love to do Disneyland Paris. I'd love to do Tokyo Disneyland. Disney Sea sounds really awesome. But I think the one I'd want to go to most is Disneyland Paris. And I think that's just because they have a very cool interpretation of Tomorrowland, because Tomorrowland here was sort of built off of this Norman Rockwell Googie style 1950s retro futurism, and France and Europe in general just never had that movement because it was, that was a very American movement. So they had to do something for Tomorrowland. They didn't want to just do that same movement that, people wouldn't be able to, I guess, relate with. So what they ended up doing was more of a steampunk style Jules Verne version of Tomorrowland, which they could, relate more closely with. And it led to some beautiful, beautiful architecture. Just look at Space Mountain. If you've never seen it before, just Google Space Mountain Paris and look at how different it looks from the Space Mountain we all know. And it's such a beautiful rendition. I would love to check it out. Our next question comes from Aaron, who asks, how do they transition between songs and waiting areas, most specifically when you're waiting for a bus? The last time I was at Walt Disney World, when I was waiting for a bus outside the Magic Kingdom, I noticed that several different Disney tunes were played, but I never really noticed one song stopping and the other song beginning. How do they transition between the songs without it being noticeable? Do they have a 1 to 2 hour of loops of songs? Thanks and have a great week. Yeah, you actually kind of answered it there. So, I mean, we commonly, as the fan community, refer to them as loops. They're just essentially, they could range anywhere from 20 minutes to, a couple of hours. Typically, I'd say about an hour or so. And they are stitched together songs, and it'll, gradually go from one to the other. Sometimes it'll be more traditionally like fading out of one song and going right into the other. Sometimes it could be more intricate, and it could be, the song actually being performed in a way that transitions to the new one. But in general, yeah, you'll get a one long loop, and then it'll just sort of naturally loop around again, as it's called. And I think a lot of it has to do with not, they assume, or at least they, I guess, expect people to not focus on the music to the point where they want to hear that transition. So I think a lot of times maybe you would hear transition if you're really focused on it, but we just don't, because it's sort of ambient music that we just hear in the background. But that's a great question. I wonder what everybody's favorite loop is. My favorite has to be, as far as queue loops go, it has to be the Jungle Cruise. And I think as far as ambient land loops, it would have to be Tomorrowland. Next question comes from Charles Donson, who says, "Hey Rob, this is about Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea. Disneyland has recently announced they're going to expand the Fantasyland in Disneyland. They said that they were considering adding a new Frozen ride. What are your thoughts on this? Secondly, they also announced they will add a new theme port in Disney Sea. Disney Sea goes off of the theme of seas, and I'm very interested what they might do with it, with the new area. What are your thoughts on this?" Great question. So, Frozen ride? Sure. I think, people are getting into the mood of hating on Frozen because it's sort of this sort of natural human tendency to be an iconoclast to something that's super popular, and my goodness, Frozen is super popular. But I feel like the movie sort of earned a spot in there, and I think it's shown that it's got the popularity to carry an attraction, and we'll see here in the States where, you know, where Maelstrom was. And I guess we might see one over there in Tokyo Disneyland, so I'm cool with that. As for Disney Sea, you know, that's sadly one of the parks I know very little about. I know a little bit about it, but not close enough that I would be able to comment on what I think they should do with a new port. I think it's a cool area. Here's the thing. Has nothing to do with the fact that it's in Tokyo, more to the fact that I think somebody pointed out, and I think it was a great way of pointing it out, that Disney Sea is sort of more like a catch-all, right? It's not something like the Animal Kingdom where if you want to put a Frozen ride in there, you go, well, what's that have to do with animals? You know, that makes no sense, right? But it's the sort of park where even though it's got that sea theme to it, you could sort of get anything in there. And I would love to see a section of Disney. And people have asked me many times, if you could make a new part of the park or you can make a new park, what park would it be? Here's my answer. Definitively, I would love to see, and this isn't a Disney property, but they've been like pseudo partners for a while, so I'd love to see them team up on this. A part of the park or a park altogether that is all about Miyazaki's films, Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro, and just I think that would be so cool. I would love to see that area and rides about that. I think that'd be really neat. Okay, great question. Let's jump to another one, and let's jump to another hotel. All right, Olivia Brogan asks, what is your opinion on Big Hero 6 coming out on January 30th in the UK? Usually films come out 6 weeks later, but we have to wait ages for the film, especially as it's a Disney film. Boy, that is one question with such a long answer. I mean, as my opinion, I think it's a bummer. I think we're at a time and an age where global releases for films and video games and media in general are just, it's so easy to do that it should be the norm. We should see movies come out worldwide. You know, it's the remnant of a past sort of industry where you had to physically ship copies of the film to other countries. You know, you had no internet, or at least less internet, so you didn't have to worry about it getting around, and it could you know, sort of break up that distribution. But that's going away. You know, I'm sure people in the UK have their ways of getting their hands on this film now, and that's only going to hurt Disney. And I'd imagine the extra length in this case probably has some legal thing to do with legally and contracts, and it, you know, the answer is never really super juicy. It's usually something boring and litigious. But I think it's a bummer. I think we should see things come out worldwide. I think that counts for movies, that counts for games. And then within movies, I think we need to see a future where we see theatrical and home release on the same day. Let people go see the movies in the movie if they want to. Let them buy it on Blu-ray if they want to on the same day. Because at the end of the day, people who want to watch it at home, one, we've got home theaters that I think for some people will rival, you know, movie theaters in terms of quality. And two, when it comes to products, this is just my opinion on it, and I think we saw this happen with music and Napster and iTunes, you need to make it as easy as possible for the consumer to get that product. If they want the product, let them have it. They want to give you their money, but it needs to be an easy enough process. And I think doing things like delaying a film 6 weeks is not an easy enough process. So, you know, I think Disney and any company would be smart to sort of pick up on that. Next question comes from, I swear I didn't make this up, Rob Plays That Game fan, who says, I have a question for the Q&A. I heard that Disney World has already put up their Christmas decorations. Do you think this is early, or do you think they should go up now? Now, by the time you guys are watching this is like, I think Thanksgiving week I'm going to put this up. I'm recording this a little earlier, and then this question was asked like a week before that. I would actually say no, I don't think it was too soon. I think typically we do see Christmas celebration pop up way too soon. Like usually, I mean, it used to be when I was younger that when Halloween was over, it popped up. And now it's like pre-Halloween, we're seeing bits of it. And I think it's crazy and ridiculous. And it's just sort of the remnant of what has become like a big consumer holiday. But with Disney, I don't think it's such a problem, because here's the thing. It's not like I get bummed out when I go to Rite Aid and I see Christmas decorations and Halloween's not even over, right? But I go to Rite Aid probably like once a week or something, you know, to pick up stuff I need. You go to Disney, that's a that's a trip you plan that's, you know, going to be once in a very long time. Some people will go annually. People in Florida might go multiple times a year, but for many people, you know, it might be the one time they go to Disney. And so if they want to see Disney with the Christmas decorations up, it'd be smart to sort of make that window as wide as they can without going too far. That way, you know, somebody who maybe they can't afford to fly in December for the actual Christmas season will still get to enjoy that without, you know, without missing out on it. But as far as, like, you know, stores go, you guys can please lay off until at least the day after Thanksgiving. And please, I'm so, I don't like to speak out against things, but I'm so anti, like, Black Friday, pre-Black Friday, people who finish their Thanksgiving and they go shopping. That's crazy to me. Not because they want to go shopping. I mean, that's great. I love shopping on Amazon that weekend and buying stuff for myself and for my family, but you have to realize when it comes to retail, you know, people have to work those days. And Thanksgivings, I feel like here in the States, Thanksgiving, I was always raised this way, that Thanksgiving was the one holiday that knew no bounds. You didn't matter what race or religion or nationality where you were, you could celebrate Thanksgiving because it's all about giving thanks. And I feel like that's a time when you should be with your family, and it bums me out to know that there are people who have to work not only the day after Thanksgiving but on Thanksgiving because people need to get their, you know, Blu-ray players at 25% off. And that's my one little rant, and I will keep it to one rant a year, I promise. Anyway, next question comes from, let's go with Jakey Jurin, who asks, if they expand Pixar Place, they could retheme the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids play to A Bug's Life, or tear it out and build a new experience? Or do you think they could do this? Also, what in that area do you think they'd be looking to retheme or remove? What's next to go? Ooh, good question. Could they do A Bug's Life? Yes, that'd actually be really cool and would require very little work on their end. Something else, I think that'd be cool as well. Do I think something is in line to go next? I don't know. They're getting rid of a lot. American Idol, Indiana Jones. They're getting rid of the Backlot Tour. The Hat's going. We could only assume, and this is not official Disney news, but if Indiana Jones and American Idol's going, I would only assume that the stuff in between is eventually going to get replaced or rethemed as well. So I don't think beyond that they have anything on the chopping block. I think that's plenty to cover them for, you know, at least a decade or so. I think the next thing we'll see change, and I think maybe Maelstrom is a canary in the coal mine, is maybe like a refresher to World Showcase somehow. I don't know. Maybe. What do you guys think? What would you do next with all these announcements? What would be the next thing that you redo or refurbish? Next question comes from Mudkip Man, who says, my question is, when you're going to Disney, do you have any rituals before you go? Like, I have to listen to Disney music the week before and will watch my favorite Disney films. Thanks, and have a magical day. Oh, boy. Rituals? I don't know if I'd call them rituals, but yes, I absolutely do things. I do things before vacation. I listen to a lot of WDW radio, Lou Mangella's podcast. I think that gets me in the mood a lot. You know, now that I'm working, I'm out of school, it's less of just thinking about it all the time, but I'll like listen to a lot of, like you said, Disney Q music, like loops and stuff like that, and I get super into that because it's just a good way to sort of immerse yourself into it when you're, you know, at work. Work hours don't operate like normal time. It just slows down the closer you get to a vacation. I'm pretty sure it's like scientific. But that's the two main things I do. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I listen to a lot of music. Next question comes from, this is my username, who says, I was wondering, you mentioned in the 80s Disney was almost sold off. If that happened, what would happen to Disneyland in the movies? So yes, what I mentioned in the past, and it wasn't that they were almost as if like there was almost pen to paper, but in the 80s, Disney was very vulnerable to a hostile takeover by other corporations. They weren't doing great, and that would have meant all or potentially some of the assets being broken off and sold to buyers or shut down or, you know, sold as a library. Who knows what could have happened if Disney got bought out by another company. But luckily Eisner and Wells were able to take the reins and save the company in a certain matter of speaking. What would have happened? Could have been anything. It could have been as minor as just another company paying the bills and running the parks. It could have been as major as just cutting their losses and shutting them down. Same thing with the movies. It could have been them just selling the library. And who knows, like maybe, Sony Pictures or Paramount or, one of these studios could have just owned the Disney library and, done whatever they pleased with it. It's hard to tell when it comes to stuff like that. And with Disney, it seems like a scary prospect and almost a laughable prospect when you consider how big they are as media moguls today. It's just the idea of them getting bought off is just kind of crazy today. Next question comes from Dylan Brogan, relation to Olivia, perhaps, who says, last night I was watching Rise of the Guardians. I noticed it was a DreamWorks film. Got me thinking, with Disney buying Pixar, do you think Disney will ever buy DreamWorks? If it happens, do you think we'd ever see DreamWorks stars in Disneyland or Disney World? What would happen to both companies? I don't think it would happen. I think it would be too much trouble for Disney. The problem is you get into what's called antitrust and you start to worry about things called monopolies, and the idea being that if, the two major players in animation today are DreamWorks and Disney buys DreamWorks, there's only one. And we have a lot of laws in place to try and minimize that, because anybody with a monopoly can sort of can abuse that power. And sometimes it's not even like, I think today it's not even a matter of would a law stop it. I think it's just a matter of the hoops Disney would have to go through to clear buying a company like DreamWorks would be not worth their trouble, especially when they've got such talent at Disney and Pixar. There's no reason for them to, So I don't think it'd be very possible. I don't think it'd be very likely. I think if they wanted to, it would be a very boring process of lots and lots of legal stuff to make sure it's possible and that acquisition would be approved. And then if it did happen, then who knows? Yeah, you might see them fold, I guess, like Shrek into the mix. But that'd be very bizarre. I feel like that'd be the sort of acquisition that'd be more for manpower than for the actual properties. Because outside of Shrek, I just don't think there are any long-term properties they have that would be worth it. Especially when you compare it to like Disney. Disney, oh man, as far as animated properties go, they are the king. They are the undisputed king and probably will be for many, many decades. All right, I got to get a new set of questions up. We've got even more questions, but I didn't fit on my screen. All right, our next question comes from 84 Weber. This question really amused me and also saddened me a little bit, but mostly amused me. 84 Weber asks, do you remember when Nick had a TV studio at Universal? Well, what if they were to remove American Idol, The Great Movie Ride, and Toy Story in Hollywood studios and had like a Disney studios and have TV shows and movies shot in front of live audiences? Now, this amuses me because that is what Hollywood Studios was way back when it opened, back before it was Hollywood Studios, when it was MGM Studios. The premise was that it was a theme park that doubled as an actual functional working studios. And they kind of did it for a while. They had animators there working on films. They tried to shoot, I think, was it the new Mickey Mouse Club down there? So they did, not in those spaces in the parks, American Idol and Great Movie Ride, but like the park offered like actual shooting, and they would, the premise was you would go and be part of the audience and you'd see them shooting this stuff. And I think there was even one case where they used that New York City street to shoot stuff. So like what you are throwing out there as an idea is something that actually happened, but it happened super, super long ago. They sort of stopped, and at the end of the day, it worked in Universal in California because Hollywood is where film happens. But, Florida is not a Hollywood land. There is no big film industry down there, so it didn't really work out. And now I imagine they'll do like minor stuff every once in a while, but nothing. They've sort of abandoned that and turned it into just a theme park. So, yeah, I totally remember when Nick had his studios. And I also remembered when Disney had studios down there. Let's see. I remember they used to show the Golden Girls house on the Backlot tour. That was a true thing. Next question comes from the Andy Man's channel, who says, whoa, hey Rob, I posted this another video and I'm not sure you got it, but here it is again. Oh, that's right. This was because I had filmed all those ahead of time. What do you know about the Disney America project for Washington, D.C.? What do you think about the Marvel movies that were announced last week? Of course, that was 2 weeks ago, so 3 weeks ago, but you're seeing this, so a month, last month. I'll do the Marvel ones first because that's a quick answer. I love that they're making all those movies. I love that they're thinking that far ahead. I think it was a bad idea that they announced them all like that, all at once at a press conference, because I didn't even see any of those movies, and yet I was tired of them all. I feel like a Marvel fatigue kicked in for me just by the mere listing of all of them. And don't get me wrong, studios do that. They do that all the time. I guarantee you every studio out there has a plan for what they're going to be making, 3 years from now. But the difference is they don't talk about it publicly for that very reason. Things can change. People could drop out. Projects could morph into something else. And then, expectations change, and then they get angry. And it's always better to keep it closer to the chest, in my opinion. And it keeps things more exciting. As for your first question, yes, if you're referring to the old failed Disney project, then I do know a little bit about it. I had more details usually, but I'm just sort of going off the top of my head here. The premise was, and this was around the same time that Euro Disney was happening, Disneyland Paris, now Euro Disney, is that Eisner wanted to open a Disney park outside of Washington, D.C., and the whole theme was going to be called Disney's America was the original name for it. And it was going to be, imagine what Liberty Square is, but sort of like times a billion. And it was going to be a theme park that was all about America and our country. And it faced a lot of harsh criticism. A lot. First off, the name was very harshly criticized. Disney's America. People did not like that it had this connotation that America was Disney's to have, right? But beyond that, the two major points of contention on this were, one, that they wanted to build to near a site that was very close to an old, I don't know if it was a Revolutionary War or a Civil War battleground, but it was near an old battleground. And a lot of people thought that it was very disrespectful to build a theme park so close to it. And then the other part was that, our country's history is very, I don't want to say controversial, but it was not all roses and sunshine. We have like most nations' histories, there are a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and a lot of people assume that if Disney was going to cover this, they would be very conservative with it, and they would, what they would call like whitewash it, cover it up, make it look like everything was all happy-go-lucky and not, not focus on some of the darker parts of American history, in particular slavery, right? And so even though Eisner tried to get a lot of American historians on board, there was just so much backlash. There were protests and movements against it. And at the end of the day, it ended up just being easier for them to just drop it and not even try. So that's exactly what they ended up doing. And, Eisner, who knows what would have happened if that were the case. Eisner had his hands full with Euro Disney, which was very financially troubled at the time. And who knows, a new park could have just been more trouble for them. Who lowered all these? Uh-oh. There we go. All right, we got all of them? Good. All right, great questions, by the way. A lot of people don't know about Disney's America, and that's something they talk a lot about in Disney War, the book by James Stewart, which covers Eisner's history a bit. And by a bit, I mean completely. Next question comes from Devin on Minecraft. What is your favorite animatronic from the parks, and what about it do you like? Also, if you could buy one thing for free in any of the shops in Disney, what would you buy? My favorite animatronic would have to be, I want to say, that's not there anymore. It would have to be Robin Williams from The Timekeeper, just because I loved how they managed to make a robot that somehow also looked like Robin Williams. If we're talking about currently, we're right here. I would have to say it would be the father from Carousel of Progress. I don't know why. I guess it's just association of the memories. And who knows, that might change. That might change if we do a top 5 about animatronics, maybe. I don't know. As for your second question, what would I buy any of the Disney parks? I think it'd be a toss-up between creating my own lightsaber at Star Tours, because I feel like that's something that's so cool, yet I'm too old to spend the money on doing it. It might be to go to Epcot. There's an art store right by the entrance on the right side when you're going up to the right of Spaceship Earth. It's this Art of Disney store, and it's got some beautiful, beautiful Disney art that's super, super expensive. So maybe one of those, or just, you know, lunch at Cosmic Rays. There's nothing beats a free lunch every once in a while. That'd be nice. I'm a simple man. I need simple things. Free food would be great for me. That's a good question for you guys too. So I'm throwing it out there. Next question comes from Jack Young. Have you ever considered going on a Disney cruise ship? Thanks. Yes, every single time I consider going on a Disney cruise ship. Whenever I talk about or plan a Disney trip, part of me goes, what about doing a cruise? Usually it's a financial thing. I think eventually I get to the point where it won't break the bank to go on a Disney cruise. And it'd have to be like with friends and stuff. And then finally, our last question this week. But first, I want to thank you all for watching. If you have a question you want me to answer, all you have to do is leave it in the comments below. I try to get to as many as possible, if not on the video, in the comments themselves. Let me know what you think. Do you want longer videos, shorter videos, face cam, no face cam? Do you want me in the parks? You want me playing survival games? I try to cater this to you guys. And if you want to know when the next episode's up, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button. Anyway, let's get to our last question. Copycat705 says, what would you want the e-ticket attraction to be in the rumored Star Wars land? Also, the rumored Cars land in Hollywood Studios is picking up speed again, so what would you want the e-ticket attraction there as well to be? Okay, first one, I don't want there to be a Cars land in Disney. Don't get me wrong, Cars was a cool movie. I want that to be a Disneyland thing because I want Disneyland to have its own unique stuff. I want Disney World to have its own unique stuff. I actually would more buy into the rumor of a Toy Story land that would line up with Toy Story 4 coming out in a couple of years. As for a e-ticket attraction, I don't know. That's tough. If you want to go old school, maybe the Toy Story, the car, the RC car chase from the very first movie. As for your other one, Star Wars Land, oh man. Anything that involves a Death Star trench. I know Star Tours kind of does it, but if we could do it more in depth and just more true to the original film, that would be so amazing. That'd be so good. It's tough because Star Tours covers a lot of like those Star Wars moments, those critical Star Wars moments. So it'd either have to be something for Episode 7, or we just a reimagining of those moments in a different form. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you all next time for the next episode of the Minecraft Disney Q&A. Bye, everybody.